Hi everyone, I'm Yana Smakula. Welcome back to My Favorite Things YouTube channel. In this video, I will show you how to create simple underwater scenes for your summer cards. I want to create an underwater scene enclosed in a circle. So I'm using a circular object to trace around on a white cardstock panel that will later make the front of my card. You can choose to use other shapes. It can be a simple geometric shape, maybe a square or an oval, or you can go with other shapes, perhaps a heart or even a shape of a sailboat to make your card unique. By containing the scene within a shape of my card, rather than creating a scene on an entire background, I'm making my project a little bit more interesting. I traced the circle using a pencil and next erased most of the pencil line to leave a very faint line on my paper so that it's not going to be visible on the finished card. You probably can't even see the line at this point on video, but the line is there. So be sure to do that, especially if you're planning to use very light colors of markers for your coloring. I stamped image of a whale from Friends with Fins stamp set in Copic marker friendly ink. I used this type of ink for all of my stamping as I will be coloring everything using my Copic markers. I made sure that the whale image overlaps my circle and also extends it in a way. So the whale is not contained in the circle itself, but rather goes outside the line. I also added a coordinating sentiment that reads, "You whaled it." Isn't that sweet and clever? And stamped a cluster of fish here and there within the circle only. I will later come back and add more fish to finish this scene. Now that all of my stamping is done, I am erasing the pencil line that goes across the whale, as I definitely don't need it there, and my card is ready to be colored. I picked several colors of Copic markers, and I will be using the exact same colors for all three of my cards today. Now you can, of course, color this using other coloring mediums, and I encourage you to use whatever mediums you're most comfortable with. In fact, I'm thinking I might recreate one of those cards and try and color it using colored pencils, just to see how that looks. Starting with a B99 as my darkest blue marker, I love to use deep, dark colors on my cards, especially in combination with a lot of white space. And I think this color combo is going to look perfect here. Next, I'm using B97 marker. It's a slightly lighter, yet still pretty deep dark blue. Next, blending it all out using B34. And finally, using B21 marker as the lightest color. To blend all of these, I am, of course, going back and reapplying the dark, medium, and light colors until I have the desired blend. The paper I'm using today is Neenah Solar Weight 80-pound cardstock. I want my scene to look as if I have rays of light coming in from the top left-hand side corner onto my whale. Now, I don't have a stamp to stamp the rays, but I can make them myself using my markers, and it's actually very easy to do. Now, to simplify things and to make sure that I don't go outside those imaginary light lines, I'm actually going to block the rest of my scene or to mask the rest of my scene using two pieces of cardstock. Now I have the area for the light rays. I want to use the lightest colors of markers here to create that light. So I'm starting with B00 and applying the color in long, quick strokes. I am being mindful of that pencil line at the top that marks the edge of my circle, as I want the light to be contained within the circle only. Next, using B12 color, also one of the lightest blue markers that I'm using today, and B21 to make some of the rays darker. Once I finish coloring the rest of the scene, I will come back to this light area and I will lighten it up using a colorless blender. But for now, I need to color the rest of the scene or the rest of the circle first. In addition to the colors I used to color the whale, I am also using C9 and C10 markers to darken the darkest blue color even more to create the look of very deep waters. This also takes a lot of layers and a lot of blending before it begins to look like a pretty underwater scene. I've sped up the coloring process significantly, so you guys don't have to watch me color this in real time, as it did take quite a bit of time. I think it took me about 30 minutes to color this. Finally, I used a C1 marker to add some shading to the whale, and also a white pen to color the dots on the whale's back, and also to add some additional dots on the belly. Let's go back to our rays of light. I'm using the chisel nib of my marker. You can use the brush nib, but I actually like the chisel nib because it's harder and it's easier to make straight lines. And I'm simply drawing those straight lines coming in from the edge of the circle, landing almost on the back of my whale. The marker I'm using is 0. It's a colorless blender. And that's actually the marker that you want to use if you'd like to not erase, but dilute the color or make the color lighter. Here you can add as few or as many lines as you like, depending on how light you would like this light area to be. Now, I did go back and stamped a few images of fish where I had too much empty space, and that completed my scene. So even though I didn't have a circle stamp or a stamp of light rays, I was able to create those using a pencil and markers alone. Don't be afraid to try and draw a scene next to your stamped images, even if you think that you can't do it. You would be surprised. I used a shimmer pen from Tonic Studios and added a lot of shimmer to the colored areas, and also added a bunch of air bubbles using Nuvo drops in clear and also a white pen. Here is another similar card I made using images from the same Friends with Fins stamp set. I stamped 3 sharks, all partially being in the circle that represents the ocean. I added "I crossed the ocean for you" sentiment. And now to make it look like this body of water is even more dangerous. It's already full of scary sharks, so pretty dangerous if you ask me. But I'm now adding waves. I just used a pencil and sketched some waves around the circle in between the sharks. And now I'm just filling those in using my darkest blue marker. Let your imagination run wild, and don't be afraid to go beyond your stamp sets and doodle little scenes for your critters. Finally, here is another example using the same approach, and again, images from the same stamp set. This time I stamped dolphins, and I made them look like as if they are jumping out from the water and almost kissing. I enclosed them in a circle, but this time I made it into a half circle and also added waves at the top of the circle, forming the horizon line. I added a stamped cluster of hearts and colored them using red markers. I used R39, R24, and R05. And then to finish this card, I added "Sending You Ocean of Love" sentiment. All of the cards were finished in the same way. I added some sparkle using a shimmer pen and also some air bubbles using Nuvo drops in clear. I hope you will give this idea a try. If you do, please share online and tag us on social media. We always love seeing what you guys are making. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.